I demand a trial by combat.
This is Let's Get Litty Read Along, GOT edition. Escape into the land of Westeros each week as we travel through the Seven Kingdoms. Which house will prevail and rule the Iron Throne, or gain its independence? Is a bigger evil really lurking beyond the wall? With decade-long summers and even longer winters, grab your favorite drink, sit back, and relax because reading is coming. Welcome back to Let's Get Litty Read Along, Game of Thrones edition. Tonight we're going to have a little bit shorter of an episode. It's been a really busy week with dance starting back up. Here in Iowa, we've had snowstorms and we're going to get 10 more inches tomorrow. If you do hear any background music, that is because there is guitar playing and a little piano blowery inner thingy playing downstairs, and it's traveling all the way up here. For tonight's drink, don't know who else can relate to this, but it's that almost weekend feeling, adulting. So we're going to have a good old D-Peppy for our drink. I'm recording this on a Thursday night, but it's coming to you guys on a Friday night. So for all of you adults out there that made it through the week, this one's for you. Have a drink on me. Have a drink on you. We're all going to have a drink tomorrow night. I'm going to have a drink and be snowed in because I'm not leaving my house. It's supposed to be a blizzard warning. So for all of you that live or are in warm places right now, send it over. So we're going to go ahead and crack this baby up. Oh, that was a good one. That was good for some ASMR. "23 flavors of bringing my soul back to my life." Or bringing my soul back to life. Now, we're going to jump right in here in a minute. Last episode, we read 2 chapters. I got a backlight, a black light, to make this cool background shine, but I haven't hung it up yet, so I'm just setting it in random places, and I keep knocking it over. So let's try this again. I'm going to tuck it in the chair more. So we're going to jump right in. Pretty short episode this week. Just a lot happening. A little tired. I also have had almost 3 weeks of dance off. I am a dance teacher on the side. Grew up dancing, teach dance now. But your girl did not stretch over winter break. I took that break very seriously, and I went back to the studio tonight, excited to get my body moving again. I've been working on this new choreography piece I'm really excited to share. So I thought, tonight's the night I'm going to record it. No. The 2 minutes of stretching I did before, not enough when you haven't moved or stretched for weeks. So now every piece of me is aching. I think I pulled muscles in spots I didn't know I could pull muscles. And then I also took a tap class tonight, so my feet are just like jittering. It was a lot of fun, but do your stretches, everybody. Stretching is very important. Don't be like me. Be like Tom. Do your stretches. Last week, we read 2 chapters. We saw Bran and Catelyn's point of view, and we got introduced to the Stark family. A very brief introduction into the king and his family, and we left off with the king and his wife, Cersei, and her siblings and kids all coming to Winterfell. So we're going to only do 1 chapter this episode. Next episode, we'll pick back up with 2 chapters. we're probably going to alternate between 1 and 2, just depending on the length and what week it is. I'm sure everyone can relate to busy schedules sometimes. So I'm going to do my best and get us through at a good pace. But sometimes it will just be one episode or one chapter. Got a caffeine after that one. Now, really, the goal of this podcast, I want it to feel like book club, right? Even though I'm reading to you, I want this to feel like a conversation, and like it's not just hitting play on some audiobook. I really want it to just be a fun space and that club social feel. So we're gonna do audiobook meets book club and create a social audiobook. If anyone is reading along with me and has their own copy and you're following in reading the chapter each week on your own or as I'm reading, let me know in the comments below or on the message boards because I think that's really exciting. And if you're not reading it yourself and you're just listening along to the story each week, also let me know. And if you're brand new to Game of Thrones, let me know. I want to be so social with everybody. I love to chit chat. So the more comments, the better. I will respond. And let's have some fun discussions over the book as we go through. So with that being said, let's just jump right in for tonight. Oh my goodness, it's just a cool tattoo too. So this chapter, we're going to meet our girl, Dany. As always, I will have the pages available in the video as we go through. So if you are on Apple right now or a streaming service that doesn't have the video, you can jump to Spotify, YouTube, or our network's website, the fmn.biz, to see the video version. And if you see the video version, you're going to see my slowly upgraded space. We've got a cool backdrop with some black lights now. Next episode, I'm going to have a cool desk. It just got here today, and I'm going to build it this weekend. And we're slowly turning the space into our social club. So here we go. Daenerys. The piano and guitar playing in the real piano playing is happening right beneath me in our family room. So I guess we're going to have that little bit of a intro into the story too, and our own background music instead of me putting background music over it today. Her brother held the gown up for her inspection. This is beauty. Touch it. Go on. Caress the fabric. Dany touched it. The cloth was so smooth that it seemed to run through her fingers like water. She could not remember ever wearing anything so soft. It frightened her. She pulled her hand away. Is it really mine? A gift from the Maester Ilargrel. That was a tough name, Viserys said, smiling. Her brother was in a high mood tonight. The color will bring out the violet in your eyes, and you shall have gold as well, and jewels of all sorts. Illyrio has promised tonight you must look like a princess. A princess, Dany thought. She had forgotten what that was like. Perhaps she had never really known. Why does he give us so much, she asked. What does he want from us? For 9.5 years, For nigh on half the year, they had lived in the Magister's house, eating his food, pampered by his servants. Dany was 13, old enough to know that such gifts seldom come without their price. Here in the free city of Pentos. Illyrio is no fool, Viserys said. He was a gaunt young man with nervous hands and a feverish look in his pale lilac eyes. The Magister knows that I will not forget my friends when I come into my throne. Dany said nothing. Magister Illyrio was a dealer in spices, gemstones, dragonbone, and other less savory things. He had friends in all of the 9 free cities, it was said, and even beyond in Baze Dorthroth and the fabled lands beside the Jade Sea. It was also said that he never had a friend he wouldn't cheerfully sell for the right price. Dani listened to the talk in the streets, and she heard these things, but she knew better than to question her brother when he wove his webs of his dream. His anger was a terrible thing when roused. Viserys called it waking the dragon. This guy, little bitch. Her brother hung the gown beside the door. Illyria will send the slaves to bathe you. Be sure you wash off the stink of the stables. Khal Drogo has 1,000 horses tonight. He looks for a different sort of mount. He studied her critically. You still slouch. Straighten yourself. He pushed back her shoulders with his hand. Let them see that you have a woman's shape now. His fingers brushed lightly over her budding breast and tightened on a nipple. You will not fail me tonight. If you do, it will go hard for you. You don't want to wake the dragon, do you? His fingers twisted her, the pinch cruelly hard through the rough fabric of her tunic. Do you? He repeated. No, Dani said meekly. Her brother smiled. Good. He touched her hair almost with affection. When they write the history of my reign, sweet sister, they will say it began tonight. When he was gone, Dani went to her window and looked out wistfully on the waters of the bay. The square brick towers of Pentos were black silhouettes outlined against the setting sun. Dani could hear the singing of the red priests as they lit their night fires and the shouts of ragged children playing games beyond the walls of the estate. For a moment she wished she could be out there with them, barefoot and breathless and dressed in tatters, with no past and no future and no feast to attend at Khal Drogo's manse. Somewhere beyond the sunset, across the narrow sea, lay a land of green hills and flowered plains and great rushing rivers, where towers of dark stone rose amidst magnificent blue-gray mountains and armored knights rode to battle beneath the banners of their lords. The Dothraki called the land Rashish Andahali. You guys, all of the Dothraki language and names are going to be the death of me. I didn't give a word of the week. Take your pick, but bless my soul in these names. In the Free Cities, they talked of Westeros and Sunset Kingdoms. Her brother had a simpler name. Our land, he called it. The words were like a prayer with him. If he said them enough, the gods were sure to hear. Ours by blood right, taken from us by treachery, but ours still, ours forever. You do not steal from the dragon. Oh no, the dragon remembers. And perhaps the dragon did remember, but Dani could not. She had never seen the land her brother said was theirs, this realm beyond the narrow sea. These places he talked of, Casterly Rock in the Eyrie, High-guarded in the Vale of Arryn, Dorne in the Isle of Faces, they were just words to her. Viserys had been a boy of 8 when they fled King's Landing to escape the advancing armies of the Usurper, but Daenerys had only been a quickening in their mother's womb. Yet sometimes Dani would picture the way it had been. So often had her brother told her the stories. The midnight flight to Dragonstone, moonlight shimmering on the ship's black sails, her brother Rhaegar battling the usurper in the bloody waters of the Trident and dying for the woman he loved. The sack of King's Landing by the one Viserys called the Usurper's dog, the Lords Lannisters and Stark. Princess Elia of Dorne pleading for mercy as Rhaegar's heir was ripped from her breast and murdered before her eyes. The polished skulls of the last dragon staring down sightlessly from the walls of the throne room while the Kingslayer opened father's throat with a golden sword. She had been born on Dragonstone 9 months after their flight, while a raging summer storm threatened to rip the island fastness apart. They said that the storm was terrible. The Targaryen fleet was smashed while it lay at anchor, and huge stone blocks were ripped from the parapets and sent hurtling into the wild waters of the narrow sea. Her mother had died birthing her, and for that, her brother Viserys had never forgiven her. She did not remember Dragonstone either. They had run again, just before the usurper's brother set sail with his new-built fleet. By then, only Dragonstone itself, the ancient seat of their house, had remained of the 7 kingdoms that once had been theirs. It would not remain for long. The garrison had been prepared to sell them to the usurper, but one night Sir Willem Darry and 4 loyal men had broken into the nursery and stolen them both, along with her wet nurse, and set sail under cover of the darkness for safety of the Bravososian coast. She remembered Sir William dimly, a great gray bear of a man, half blind, roaring and bellowing orders from his sick bed. The servants had lived in terror of him, but he had always been kind to Dany. He called her little princess and sometimes my lady, and his hands were soft and old as leather. He had never left his bed, though, and the smell of sickness clung to him day and night, a hot, moist, sickly, sweet odor. That was when they lived in Braavos, in the big house with the red door. Dany had her own room there with a lemon tree outside her window. After Sir Willem had died, the servants had stolen what little money they had left, and soon after they had been put out of the big house, Dany had cried when the red door closed behind them forever. They had wandered since then, from Braavos to Myr, from Myr to Tyrosh, and on to Quhor and Volantis, and lies and never staying long in one place. Her brother would not allow it. The usurper's hired knives were close behind them, he insisted, though Dany had never seen one. At first, the magister and Acrons and merchant princes were pleased to welcome the last Targaryens to their homes and tables, but as the years passed and the usurper continued to sit upon the Iron Throne, doors closed and their lives grew meaner. Years passed and they had been forced to sell their last few treasures, and now even the coin they had forgotten from Mother's crown had gone. In the alleys and wine sinks of Pentos, they called her brother the Beggar King. Dany did not want to know what they called her. "We will have it all back someday, sweet sister," he would promise her. Sometimes his hand shook when he talked about it. The jewels and the skills, Dragonstone and King's Landing, the Iron Throne, and the 7 kingdoms, all they have taken from us, we will have it back. Viserys lived for that day. All that Daenerys wanted back was the big house with the red door and the lemon tree outside her window, the childhood she had never known. Little deep happy break. One thing too to really think about as we go through this book, especially with Dany and her story, and even when we get to Jon, who we have met but we haven't heard his point of view yet, is how young they are in the book. If you watch the show, the characters are aged up quite a bit when we get to like Arya and Sansa and Jon and Dany, so it's like full-on adults playing these kids, right? For the most part, like Sansa and Arya's actors were still pretty young, but like Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke were full-grown adults, and so when we watch the show, we don't think about them being 13 and 14 when they're going through all these things. Like, that's just so insane and wild to think about, and it really puts their characters, I think, in a different light and perspective when you stop and think, like, she's about to be married to Khal Drogo and sold off to her by her brother at 13 years old. Like, I don't know about you guys, but at 13 years old, I was just watching High School Musical, making dances in my room, and like trying not to get in trouble for hoarding dirty dishes and stuff in there, right? Like, I cannot imagine being sold off to some random dude I don't even know how to speak their language to at 13 years old. It's wild to think about. There came a soft knock on her door. "Come," Dany said, turning away from the window. Illyrio's servants entered, bowed, and sat behind their business. They were slaves, a gift from one of the Magister's Dany's Dothraki friends. There was no slavery in the free city of Pentos. Nonetheless, they were slaves. The old woman, small and gray, a mouse, never said a word, but the girl made up for it. She was Illyrio's favorite, a hair-faired, blue-eyed wench of 16 who chattered constantly as she worked. They filled her bath with hot water brought up from the kitchen and scented it with fragrant oils. The girl pulled the rough cotton tunic over Danny's head and helped her into the tub. The water was scalding hot, but Daenerys did not flinch or cry out. She liked the heat. It made her feel clean. Besides, her brother had often told her that it was never too hot for a Targaryen. "Ours is the house of the dragon," he would say. "The fire is in our blood." The old woman washed her long, silver pale hair and gently combed out the snags, all in silence. The girl scrubbed her back and her feet and told her how lucky she was. "Drogo is so rich that even his slaves wear golden collars. 100,000 men ride in his Khalasar and his palace in vast Dothrak, and 200 rooms and more. What of a handsome man the Khal was, so tall and fierce and fearless in battle, the best rider ever to mount a horse, a demon archer." Daenerys said nothing. She had always assumed that she would wed Viserys when she came of age. For centuries, the Targaryens had married brother to sister since Aegon the Conqueror had taken his sisters to bride. The line must be kept pure. Viserys told her 1,000 times. There was the king's blood of the golden blood of old Valyria, the blood of dragons. Dragons did not mate with beasts of the field, and Targaryens did not mingle their blood with that of lesser men. Yet now Viserys schemed to sell her to a stranger, a barbarian. When she was clean, the slaves helped her from the water and held her dry. The girl brushed her hair until it shone like molten silver, while the old woman anointed her with the spice flower perfume of Dothraki plains, a dab on each wrist, behind her ears, on the tips of her breast, and one last one, cool on her lips, down there between her legs. You guys, I was not prepared for that. If you are not watching the video, my mouth just dropped open because I was not expecting little George R.R. Martin to say the lips between her legs. My goodness. I am not a prude, I was just not prepared. So I think we're going to be in for a wild ride. They dressed her in the wisp that the Magister Illyrio had sent up, and then the gown, a deep plum silk to bring out the violet in her eyes. The girl slid the gilded sandals onto her feet while the old woman fixed the tiara in her hair and slid the golden bracelets crusted with amethyst around her wrist. Last of all came the collar, a heavy golden torque emblazoned with ancient Valyrian glyphs. "Now look at you all, a princess," the girl said breathlessly when they were done. Dany glanced at her image in the silvered-looking glass that Illyrio had so thoughtfully provided. A princess, she thought, but she remembered what a girl had said. How Khal Drogo was so rich, even his slaves wore golden collars. She felt a sudden chill, and goose flesh pimpled her bare arms. Her brother was waiting in the cool of the entry hall, seated on the edge of the pool, his hand drilling in the water. He rose when she appeared and looked over her critically. "Stand there," he told her. "Turn around." "Yes, good. You look regal," Magister Illyrio said, stepping through an archway. He moved with surprising delicacy for such a massive man. Beneath loose garments of flame-colored silk, rolls of fat jiggled as he walked. Gemstones glittered on every finger, and his man had oiled his forked yellow beard until it shone like real gold. "May the Lord of the Light shower you with blessings on this most fortunate day, Princess Daenerys," the Magister said as he took her hand. He bowed his head, showing a thin glimpse of crooked yellow teeth through the gold of his beard. She is a vision, Your Grace, a vision, he told her brother. Drogo will be enraptured. She's too skinny, Viserys said. His hair had the same silver blonde as hers. He had been pulled back tightly behind his head and fastened with a dragon bone brooch. It was a severe look that emphasized the hard, gaunt lines of his face. He rested his hand on the hilt of the sword that Illyrio had lent him and said, "Are you sure that Khal Drogo likes his women this young?" I'm just giving him a little baby bitch voice because he's a little baby bitch. I do not like her brother, in case you couldn't. She has had her blood. That means period. She is old enough for the cow. Also gross in the book context. It's not that gross in the show since they're aged up. Illyrio told him not for the first time. Look at her. The silver gold hair, those purple eyes. She is the blood of old Valyria, no doubt, and highborn daughter of the old king, sister to the new. She could not fail to entrance our Drogo. When he released her hand, Daenerys found herself trembling. I suppose, her brother said doubtfully, the savages have queer taste. Boys, horses, sheep. Best not suggest this to Khal Drogo, Illyrio said. Anger flashed in her brother's lilac eyes. Do you take me for a fool? The Magister bowed slightly. I take you for a king. Kings lack the caution of common men. My apologies if I have given offense. He turned away and clapped his hands for the bearers. The streets of Pentos were pitch black when they set out in Illyrio's elaborate carved palanquin. Two servants went ahead to light their way, carrying ornate oil lanterns with panes of pale blue glass, when a dozen strong men hoisted the poles to their shoulders. It was warm and close inside behind the curtains. Dany could smell the stench of Illyrio's pallid flesh through his heavy perfumes. Her brother sprawled out on his pillows beside her, never noticed. His mind was away across the narrow sea. We won't need his whole Khalasar, Viserys said. His fingers toyed with the hilt of his borrowed blade, though Dany knew he had never used a sword in earnest. 10,000, that would be enough. I could sweep the 7 kingdoms with 10,000 Dothraki screamers. The realm will rise and for its rightful king. Tyrell, Redwine, Barry, Greyjoy, they have no more love for the usurper than I do. The Dornishmen will burn to avenge Elia and her children, and the small folk will be with us. They cry out for their king. He looked at Illyrio anxiously. They do, don't they? They are your people, and they love you well, Magister, Illyrio said amiably. And hold fast all across the realm. Men lift secret toasts to your health, while women sew dragon banners and hide them against the day of your return from across the water. He gave a massive shrug. Or so my agents tell me. Dany had no agents, no way of knowing what anyone was doing or thinking across the narrow sea. But she mistrusted Illyrio's sweet words as she mistrusted everything about Illyrio. Her brother was nodding eagerly, however. I shall kill the usurper myself, he promised, who had never killed anyone. As he killed my brother Rhaegar, and Lannister too, the Kingslayer, for what he did to my father. That would be most fitting, Magister, Illyrio said. Dany saw the smallest hint of a smile playing around his full lips, but her brother did not notice. Nodding, he pushed back a curtain and stared off into the night, and Dany knew he was fighting the Battle of the Trident once again. The 9-towered manse of Khal Drogo sat beside the waters of the bay, its high brick walls overgrown with pale ivy. It had been given to the cow by the magisters of Pentos, Illyrio told them. The free cities were always generous with the horse lords. It is not that we fear these barbarians, Illyrio would explain with a smile. The Lord of the Light would hold our city walls against 1,000,000 Dothraki, or so the Red Priest promised. Yet, why take chances when their friendship comes so cheap? Their palanquin was stopped at the gate, the curtains pulled roughly back by one of the house guards. He had the copper skin and dark almond eyes of a Dothraki, but his face was hairless and he wore the spiked bronze cap of the Unsullied. He looked at them coldly. Magister Ilario growled something to him in the rough Dothraki tongue. The guardsman replied in the same voice and waved them through the gates. Dany noticed that her brother's hand was clenched tightly around the hilt of his borrowed sword. He looked almost as frightened as she felt. "Insolent eunuch," Viserys muttered as the palanquin lurched up toward the mains. Magister Ilario's words were honey. "Many important men will be at the feast tonight. Such men have enemies. The cow must protect his guest, yourself chief among them, your grace. No doubt the usurper would pay well for your head." "Oh yes," Viserys said darkly. "He has tried, Illyrio. I promise you that. He has hired knives to follow us everywhere." "I am the last dragon, and he will not sleep easily while I live." The palanquin slowed and stopped. The curtains were thrown back, and a slave offered a hand to help Daenerys out. His collar, she noted, was ordinary bronze. Her brother followed, one hand still clenched hard around his sword hilt. It took 2 strong men to get Magister Illyrio back on his feet. Inside the manse, the air was heavy with the scent of spices, pinchfire, sweet lemon, and cinnamon. They were escorted across the entry hall where a mosaic of colored glasses depicted the doom of Valyria. Old burned and black iron lanterns all along the walls. Beneath an arch of twining stone leaves, a eunuch sang their coming. "Viserys of House of Targaryen, the third of his name," he called in a high, sweet voice. "King of the Andals and runner of the first men, Lord of the 7 kingdoms and protector of the realm. His sister Daenerys Stormborn, Princess of Dragonstone. His honorable host Ilario Mopatis, Magister of the free city of Pentos." What a job that would be. They stepped past the eunuch into a pillared courtyard overgrown in the pale ivy. Moonlight painted the leaves in shades of gold and silver as the guests drifted among them. Many were Dothraki horse lords, big men with red-brown skin, their drooping mustachios bound in metal rings, their black hair oiled and braided and hung with bells. Yet among them moved bravos and sellswords from Pentos and Myr and Tyrosh, a red priest even fatter than Illyrio, hairy men from the port of Iban, and lords from the Summer Isles with the skin as black as ebony. Daenerys looked at them all in wonder, and realized, with a sudden start of fear, that she was the only woman there. Illyrio whispered to them, "Those 3 are Khal Drogo's blood riders there," he said. "By the pillar is Khal Mara with his son Ro. The man with the green beard is his brother Artron of Tyrosh, and the man behind him is Ser Jorah Mormont." The last name caught Daenerys. "A knight?" "No less," Illyrio smiled through his beard, "anointed with the 7 oils by the High Septim himself." "What is he doing here?" she blurted. "The usurper wanted his head," Illyrio told them. "Some trifling affront. He sold some poachers to a Tyrosh slaver instead of giving them to the Night's Watch. Absurd law. A man should be able to do as he likes with his own chattel." "I shall wish to speak with Ser Jorah before the night is done," her brother said. Dany found herself looking at the knight curiously. He was an older man past 40 and balding and still strong and fit. Instead of silks and cottons, he wore wool and leather. His tunic was a dark green embroidered with the likeness of black bear standing on 2 legs. She was still looking at this strange man from the homeland she had never known with Magister Illyrio placed a moist hand on her bare shoulder. "Over there, sweet princess," he whispered. "There is the cow himself." Dany wanted to run and hide, but her brother was looking at her, and if she displeased him, she knew he would wake the dragon. Anxiously, she turned and looked at the man Viserys hoped would ask to wed her before the night was done. The slave girl had not been far wrong, she thought. Khal Drogo was a head taller than the tallest man in the room, yet somehow light on his feet, as graceful as the panther in Alario's Majesty. He was younger than she'd thought, no more than 30. His skin was the color of polished copper, his thick mustachios bound with gold and bronze rings. I must go and make my submissions, Magister Ilario said. Wait here, I shall bring him to you. Her brother took her by the arm as Ilario waddled over to Khal. His fingers were squeezing so hard they hurt. Do you see his braid, sweet sister? Drogo's braid was black as midnight and heavy with scented oil, hung with tiny bells that rang softly as he moved. It swung well past his belt, below even his buttocks, and the end of it brushing against the back of his thighs. You see how long it is? Viserys said. When Dothraki are defeated in combat, they cut off their braids in disgrace, so the world will know their shame. Khal Drogo has never lost a fight. He is Aegon the Dragon Lord come again, and you will be his queen. Dany looked at Khal Drogo. His face was hard and cruel, and his eyes as cold as dark as ox. Her brother hurt her sometimes when she woke the dragon, but he did not frighten her the way this man frightened her. I don't want to be his queen, she heard herself say in a small voice. Please, Viserys, I don't want to. I want to go home. Home? He kept his voice low, but she could hear the fury in his tone. How are we to go home, sweet sister? They took us from our home. He drew her into his shadows out of sight, his fingers digging into her skin. How are we to go home? He repeated, meaning King's Landing and Dragonstone and all the realm they had lost. Dany had only meant their rooms in Alario's estate, no true home surely, though all they had, but her brother did not want to hear that. There was no home there for him. Even the big house with the red door had not been home for him. His fingers dug hard into her arm, demanding an answer. I don't know, she said at last, her voice breaking. Tears welled in her eyes. I do, he said sharply. We go home with an army, sweet sister, with Khal Drogo's army, and that is how we go home. And if you must wed him and bed him for that, you will. He smiled at her. I'd let his whole Khalasar fuck you if need be, sweet sister. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that was what it took to get my army. Be grateful as owning Drogo. In time, you may even learn to like him. Now dry your eyes. Ilario is bringing him over, and he will not see you crying. Oh my god, I hate him. Again. Such a little bitch. How about all the Khalasar? Fuck you, Viserys. Oh. Dany turned and saw that it was true. Magister Ilario, all smiles and bows, was escorting Khal Drogo over to where she stood. She brushed away unfallen tears with the back of her hand. Smile, Viserys whispered nervously, his hand falling to the hilt of his sword. And stand up straight, let him see that you have breast. Gods know, you have little enough as it is. Daenerys smiled and stood up straight. And that is where we end. Again, as you can tell, I really hate her brother, especially in the show. Like, he's not good in that chapter, right? But already having seen the show, they just really, the actor did a good job of showing how much of a douche he is. So I won't say anything else about his character right now, but that is going to be our episode. It's just, again, quick one chapter. I hope everyone has a great, fantastic weekend. And if you have not, like, subscribe, download to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, visit the website. Any traction helps. If you don't want to subscribe, share. You just share it with everybody you know. That's the best way that you can just support our little podcast right now. So bottoms up. Signing off of Let's Get Litty Read Along Game of Thrones edition, and stay safe this weekend. Okay, it's not doing it this week, so rock on!